He's gonna kill me. We're gonna trade. Look it! Get out of town, boys! What's going on, boys? Got another video for you here today, and I'm just going to go over my current Atlas strategy. And as you can see, we have an area juiced up here. This one, has 77 increased quant, increased breaches, all sorts of stuff like that. And I just want to go over quickly how I set this up and how I've been farming about 3 to 6 divines per hour. Based on the comments on my last one, I'm going to do a quick overview of it so that for those of you that just want the info and then get out, and then I will get into actually details of how I do this, how I set it up, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully this format will be a little more suitable for the people who are just looking for information, and then the people who actually want to know why I'm doing these things and be a little more specific. So we'll start there. And we'll just go through this real quick. Like I said, it's about 3 to 6 divines per hour when you're running your juiced areas. And that's not 3 to 6 raw divines where they're going to drop. And they might, in all honesty, they might. But what I mean is that, in sellable currency. So in divines, in exalted orbs, chaos, splinters, tablets. So the things that are just very easily sellable, you can just boom right away, trade them to the vendor or whatever. That's what I mean. But again, there have been times where I have dropped 3 or 4 raw divines in an hour, and it's not that totally far-fetched if you set up your map properly. But 3 to 6 divines of raw currency can be expected when you set everything up properly and you're running maps the way you should be. So next, quantity and rarity on Waystones and precursor tablets is more important than rarity on your gear. I know everyone wants to squeeze it in there, but I will tell you right now, I've had per my testing, I had much more success really juicing my maps before I had rarity on my gear than having good rarity on my gear and not juicing my maps. So just keep that in mind. Get your build in a place where you can run T15s effectively and start, and then make sure you roll your maps well, and then later, little by little, start working rarity into your gear. Get your build to a place where it's running T13s, 14s, 15s efficiently, and then add the rarity in later. Okay, so just keep that in mind. The map is more important than rarity on your gear. So what you're going to try to do is you're going to try to run 2 to 3, maybe 4 towers, depending on the layout. In a certain area, and every time you hit one, you're going to add a precursor tablet, and we'll go over the precursor tablets. We generally want quantity, increased breaches, and then perhaps increased experience. I'll go over that later. Sometimes I will put the very first one in an area, I'll put increased experience and increased chance for breaches, just so that while I'm kind of passing through to get to my towers, I can get a little bit increased experience and work on a level. So again, we'll go over that in a little bit more detail when we get into the map. Let's see, so use undesirable maps, like, whatever maps you don't enjoy running. Like, for instance, I love Sandspit and I love Savannah, right? Those are my 2 favorites. So those are the ones that I save to run like my best maps. I try to juice them up as much as possible. I try to avoid them while I'm going to towers so that it keeps getting hit with multiple different precursor tablets. And then by the time I'm ready to run it, I have a really juiced map, and it's got a ton of quantity and all that kind of stuff. And then we use the maps like, let's say, for instance, Hidden Grotto I don't love, so this is one that maybe I would try to path around, and as you can see here, with these towers, I tried to avoid all these because I like Savannah and Seepage, Decay is kind of whatever, Blooming Field, these are all good maps. So I came around this backside and ran, the Hideout, which is a quick free one, right? Lofty Summit, this, I just ran through that. And see, we kind of just played the edge here. And now we have, a lot of desirable maps that are still available to run with, 57 quant, 60 quant, 77 quant, 77. So these are all really juiced up, and I just tried to avoid them. See, and then we come through here, but then we kept, again, a bunch of desirable maps intact while we kind of ran to each tower, and then we threw, a precursor in each one as we were cruising through. Just generally speaking, like I think I said earlier, or make sure you prioritize well-rolled T13s, T14s, T15s over poorly rolled T15s, right? So you're much better off running a T13 that has quantity and rarity and some pack size or some rare monsters or whatever the case is than you're running a T15 that's rolled, but maybe it has a little bit of rarity or something on there. Like, so prioritize the high roll, the well-rolled T13s, 14s, and 15s over just a poorly rolled 15 until you have a really massive map pool and you can just roll a bunch of them and really just pull down the T15. So as you're cruising through and you're really trying to work on just stacking up T15s, T13, 14, 15s, all fine. Okay. Next, so this one is interesting, and it's not 100% confirmed, at least for me. Perhaps you guys know. Use T15 maps in your towers to have a better chance to find citadels. When I started using more T15s in my towers, more and more citadels started to pop up, and now they're strewn all over the place. You know, multiple times they have shown up, you know, really close to one another. In fact, I think there's a couple. So here's one right here, and then right here. So there's literally two in one screen, and that's just because, again, from my understanding, running T15s in towers helps expose those more quickly. So make sure that you're doing that. Waystones, prefixes are the good ones, suffixes are the bad ones. So if you can fill up your prefixes before you fill up your suffixes, then you do not need to put any more. You know, whether you're exalt slamming or you're just, you know, alchemying or whatever, if you get your 3 prefixes and they're really good, you only have 1 suffix, then it can stay that way. There's no reason to add more. It doesn't do anything to your map. So your prefixes are where you want to focus. That's where your rarity, your quantity, your pack size, and your rare monsters are all going to come from. And then the bad ones, burning ground, you know, elemental penetration, negative player resist, all that, those are all suffixes. So you want to try to avoid as many of those as possible, and really try to focus on prefixes. You know, easier said than done, but that's just the way you want to do it. And as far as precursor tablets, I kind of touched on this. You want quantity of items found is your best one. The higher the roll, the better. You want to have as many breaches as possible. If you want to, 8 to 10 breaches on the implicit. And then again, you want chance for increased breaches, and at times you may want to run increased experience if you're pushing a level. It will hurt your loot a little bit, but it is nice for leveling and just kind of powering through. So that's the recap, and now we'll kind of actually get into how I set this up and a little bit more detailed. So where are we here? Okay, so here's this region here that's set up real nice. As you can see, you know, we've got 75 quant, 82 quant, 94 quant on a blooming field. So these are all going to be really nice maps, and we should get some pretty nice drops in these. So like I said, the way that I set this up was I basically try to run about 2 to 3 towers at a time, maybe more when possible. But so for instance, like the next one that we'll try to run is, see, we have 3 towers right here. So what I'll probably try to do is, and a lot of these will get juiced up by these towers. So it might be worth clearing this area here, because this will probably reach out to right around here somewhere. Clear all this out, and then we'll try to sneak back there as best as we can, you know, going through, like, Decay is not a great map, and Mire's the worst map in the game, right? So we'll go through those, another Decay, to hit the tower, and then we'll try to avoid Savannah and some of the better maps, Blooming Field, while we get there, so that when we actually put our precursors in, they get hit with the quantity and the breaches and all that kind of stuff. And what we'll do is we'll kind of sneak through and hit all 3 of these, with each tower, once we finish this tower, we put a precursor right in it, and we juice the area right away, because even if we are pathing, we might as well take advantage of it, right? So then we cruise through, we're going to hit all these, and by the time we're done with all these and we hit all 3, we'll have a really nice area here. We'll run our good maps, and then we'll kind of look for our next 3 towers, right? And if it's not here, then we might move down. You know, here's a couple, doesn't look great. Here's 3 right here. So this might be another good one to push after. It's fairly close by. It looks like we can get in over here. We would push these 3 towers. Same situation. Walk through the maps that are less desirable to you. Val Factory, not a great map. That's one that we would try to maybe just pass through. Hidden Grotto, we just passed through. Deserted, it's an okay map. But, you know, that allowed us to save, you know, some of the better ones, you know, Steaming Springs or whatever the case is. So that's how we set that up. Okay. Now, getting into the precursors, these are the ones that I like to use. They do get expensive with quantity and increased breaches, and the more breaches within range, obviously the prices go up and up and up. You can pay anywhere between a divine to 3. But if you get low rolled ones, they're still good. Like if you don't have a divine descent to spend on a precursor, you can go and you can get them for much cheaper and just get a 10 quantity with a low chance for extra breaches, and it still makes a big difference. But quantity is what you're looking for here. That is the most important. The other modifier, is a little more malleable, I guess. This is what I was talking about. This might be one that I run at the very, like if I'm trying to get a level, this might be the one I run at the very first tower, because it'll put that increased experience on, and then as we're kind of going through, we'll get an increased experience, and it'll just help us level. It gets a little bit less as you start getting into the high 90s, but if you're in the high 80s or the early 90s, this does make a pretty big difference and expedites leveling quite a bit. And then again, if you need to, you can use the normal precursor tablets. If you have a really juiced area and you're like, oh, I don't really need to add more breaches, these are good because it will up the level of your map by 1. So if you run a 15, it's technically a 16. If you run a 16, it's a 17, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you can still get quantity and all that kind of stuff. So these are good, but ideally you're using your breach tablets to fill up your towers. It's just a little bit better that way. Now, as you're dropping these do drop kind of often. So if you get 3, just pretty standard, you can actually run in here and just reforge it. And, maybe you get lucky with, as we did. So there's we got an 8, it's a 5 map, but we did get an 18 quant. So that is technically a usable one. If, you don't have the money to be buying them for a divine each, that would have been a nice come up, right? So we just traded our 3 and we just got 18 quant. The breaches in maps contain additional class 10 doesn't really mean anything. But 18 quant is really, really nice. And again, if you don't have the money to just go buy these, then that would have been a really nice one to roll from a reforge. So keep that in mind. Don't throw them away. Just keep them. I keep them in a tab. And then once I have a bunch, then I go in and just reforge and try to hit. The ones that hit, I keep. The other ones I just put back in this bin, wait till I have some more, and then I just rinse and repeat. So keep that in mind. You can 3-to-1 them. Okay, so now again, like I was saying earlier, prioritize running 13s and 14s that are rolled well over T15s that aren't rolled that well. Okay, and so let me go over. So these are basically 2 of the maps that I'm looking for when I run. Okay, this one has quantity, rarity, and rare monsters on it. Perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Ideally, the rarity is more. It's over 100, but obviously this would still be a nice map on a an 80 quant map, right? With all this, it would be a lot of quantity and rarity and a bunch of rare monsters. And in this case, we would actually use distilled paranoia. And distilled paranoia will add 45% increased rare monsters and make it delirious. This does make the map much more difficult, but it is it does increase drops a lot. So as you can see, now we've added more rare monsters to this one. Now this one is quantity, rarity, and pack size. So for this one, I would actually use distilled guilt, which is going to increase our pack size. So now these are the 2 options that I run. If it has pack size, I add pack size. If it has rare monsters, I add rare monsters. Otherwise, we want quantity and rarity. If you have a ton of quantity, it is okay to have just a massive rarity roll. That's also a good thing. But ideally, this is kind of the dream here. Here's a couple that are rolled okay. Like, this is still a runnable one. It doesn't have pack size or rare monsters, but it has a ton of rarity on it, has quantity, right? So this is still a good map. And here's another one it's still a good map, right? It's got good rarity on it. It's got rare monsters. It doesn't have a whole lot of bad suffixes on it. So this is still a good map, but these 2 would be stronger with pack size, rare monsters, quantity, and rarity, right? So between those combination, that's where you're going to get your best juice, and that's what we want to do. And again, if you can't run delirious and you're dying, then just don't yet. Just wait, run just a naked T13 and farm these up until you get some money and your character's a little bit stronger, and then move to 14s and 15s, etc., etc. Like, you can get a lot of drops on 13s and 14s still, so just don't feel like you have to run 15s to get drops. You're better off juicing up a 13 than running a whack 15. So I just want to make sure, we understand that. So that's that. It's pretty simple. You're just looking for good prefixes and staying away from bad suffixes. Not too bad. Now, lastly, we will go over the tree that I'm currently using. This has been pretty good. The one thing that's a little weird is this kind of local knowledge, but it seems to be pretty good. Your option otherwise would be, instead of going through monster packs in your maps and local knowledge, you would just go through Waystones and quantity of precursor tablets in your maps. I felt like I dropped plenty of precursors, and I don't really need Waystones because because the maps are so juiced, we drop plenty. So I actually am coming through here, and then we grab all the precursor effect because we want to juice those up as much as possible. A chance to double the precursor effects, explicit modifiers. So we're just trying to juice up all the modifiers on our maps and on our precursors. We come around unstable energies. This gives us a chance to boost either the prefixes or the suffixes. So you've got a 50-50 to really juice up your quantity and your rarity and stuff like that, and then you've got a 50% chance to juice up the bad ones, the monster attack speed, the elemental penetration. So those can get really out of control really fast. That's why you want to be mindful of the suffixes that you're rolling onto your maps. And then we just kind of cruise around and we take all the increased effect of modifiers, quantity, rarity. We want, again, more increased effect of modifiers. And then lastly, we come down to rare unique modifiers, have 1 to 2 additional modifiers. And then we grab increased rare monsters in your maps. So nothing crazy there, pretty standard stuff. As far as breach, if you have not opened this, just so you're aware, for every time you beat the breach boss, you get 2 points. But the next time you fight the breach boss, he is slightly more difficult. So by the time you get to the last one, it is a little tough, and you need a fairly strong build. But having any of these unlocked is good, so definitely, as you're running these, picking up your breach stones, run them if you can. If you can't quite run them yet because your character isn't strong enough, sell them. They sell for 70 to 80 exalts. At least currently, they might have dropped a little bit, but you can assume 60 to 80 exalts depending. So you can sell those while you're running them, and then, you know, get some gear for your character. Once your character's geared a little bit more, then go run your breaches. So it is kind of a nice, symbiotic relationship where you can kind of just self-sustain by getting your points, you know, running them or selling them or whatever the case is, and juicing up your character, etc., etc. What we take, though, is we take Sustained Siege, Crumbling Walls, Frantic Invasion, and Rising Pyre. So with these, you know, our breaches fill up really quickly. There's a ton of monsters. We have a chance to have multiple, you know, every once in a while you'll get the 10 breach. It's pretty rare, but when you do, it is very out of control. You know, multiple times I've dropped multiple divines. I haven't dropped more than 3 in a map yet. That's still my cap, but I've dropped 3 a couple times, and I've dropped 2 divines maybe 10 to 15 times in a single map, right? So that's really, really nice. As far as the other ones, we do have the boss atlas filled out, and then we just go Spoils of War, Radiant Waystones, Directed Worship, Organized Forces, and Beyond Reality. Up here, I have not been farming this up. We're actually going to do some of that today, so if you guys want to come check out boss farming on the stream, we're actually going to try to get this all filled out. And then as far as the other mechanics, I just have not cared about them at all because we use emotions and we don't use mirrors. We haven't really needed this. Expedition is horrendous, and so is Ritual. But now that they are going to buff those according to the most recent campfire chat. So I do need to get these filled out now because I'm going to want to test these out now that they're better. But they've been so bad up to this point that I haven't worried about it. I haven't worried about doing the bosses or getting my points. Now we have to because they're about to buff it. So of course we have to go try them. And that's it. So that's your Atlas. Nothing crazy. And with that, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to make this video too long. We had some freakouts last time, but like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. If this was helpful, let me know if you tried it and if it worked for you. And with that being said, I'm going to hop on stream, so come say what up. Appreciate you all. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.